DIY rattle can spray painting parts of a car, nothing easier than that, right? Well, this is my BMW E39 and as you can see here, these sills are currently paintless. The thing is, this car had severe rust holes in both sills. We cut out the old, welded new ones in and went through the whole process. Grinding, filling, sanding to make sure everything was as smooth as it gets. And now it's time for the DIY paint job. In order to paint the car, I have bought a few bottles of primer. I have bought 2 cans of base coat and 2 cans of clear coat. So let's start. At first we're grinding down the spot welds from the sill. And this really took a long time because there are so many spot welds which I had to grind down. And now we are preparing the surface to make sure that the primer holds up pretty good. Therefore I'm using my angle grinder and a wire wheel. Now we're brushing on some rust stop to make sure that there's no rust forming on here. Now it's time to protect the paint from the new paint. We've already sprayed primer on the top of the sill and now it's time to prime the bottom. As soon as I finished with masking up the car, I've started cleaning the sills. And I'm also scuffing up the surfaces to make sure that the primer holds up pretty well. Now it's time for the primer. At first I'm putting on a thin layer of primer, then a second layer of primer, and I'm also doing a third layer of primer. And now I'm doing the exact same thing on the other side. Well guys, we have a problem here. Look at this. It's like, I don't know, snowfall. Wow. So now I'm going to take off everything of the primer and redo everything and clean it with some isopropanol. I've just paid €5 for 100 milliliter. And the other side looks exactly like that. Here, take a look at that. I mean, yeah, woo. Let's begin with removing the old primer. So, well, here we go again. I don't want to do this anymore. But this time, I'm making sure that the sill is properly clean. So therefore, I've took my time and grinded down the primer. Guys, I've cleaned all of the sills up. I've removed as much primer as I possibly can because there are some spots I really couldn't get to, which is okay because it is holding up pretty good there. And now I'm taking isopropanol, you know, that horrible smelling fluid the doctor gives you on the spot where the vaccination comes in. And here goes on the first layer of primer again. Guys, it's pretty cold here, so today isn't really the perfect condition for painting a car, but I'm going to do it anyways. Now I'm going to remove all of the doors, the fenders, then I'm going to grind down the sills on both sides and I'm going to put on some primer. So now we are putting the car on the ground and roll it a little bit back because then I can get the doors off. Let's remove the bolts that hold up the fenders. And there are just a few because I've just screwed in 2 screws I think. And now we're going on the other side. Enough. It is. Now let's remove the doors. And these are actually just held up by 3 screws and 1 door connector. Here I already masked up the car for paint. And now we are masking up the car on the driver's side. I'm actually doing this for my first time, so I'm really trying to do my best here. But if you have any ideas or opinions, please let me know in the comments. Here I'm scuffing up the surface once more because I've decided to prime the top once more. Scuffing up the surface and now we're cleaning the sill properly and now we are priming it. After priming, I've took the base coat and sprayed it on. At first a thin layer and then 2 thicker ones. The fact that I'm painting the car is actually pretty rewarding. I'm finished with the paint and in my opinion it looks so good. Besides of that you can see that there is some filler in here. But for my first time painting a whole sill, I think it looks pretty good. I've already sprayed some clear on it, 2 layers, so that sill is finished. And the other side too. Well, I guess it's not perfect, but it's good enough for me at least. Let's take the plastic off there and see what the finished product looks like. Oh man, it needs some work. You can see the line, which was quite obvious. Take a look here. That's something for another day. And now we are reassembling the car to see the full effect of the paint. So let's put on the doors and also the fenders. Well, and I actually have to confess something. I haven't painted the underside of the sill because I wanted to put on a stone chip paint. Because I don't want it to rust ever again. But in my opinion, the color of the stone chip protection fits the car so well.